On December 7th, 1941, Japan, like its infamous Axis partners, struck first and declared war afterwards. Costly to our Navy was the loss of war vessels, airplanes, and equipment, but more costly to Japan was the effectiveness of its foul attacks.
To the clear sky came the treacherous Japanese.
A state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
On December 7th, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Army infamously attacked the Pearl Harbor, United States naval base. The attack lasted only 90 minutes, and in the end, 2,403 Americans were killed in cold blood. As we all know, this was quickly followed by the United States declaring war on Japan. In return, Germany declared war on the United States. Thus marking its entry into World War II. This not only changed the trajectory of the nation as a whole, but that of the entire world. History forever changed that Sunday morning, and the world would not be the same as it is today without this unfortunate tragedy. But what if Japan had not sent out that fleet of bomber planes? What if that fateful December morning had been just a regular one? Would the United States still have eventually joined the war? Seems like an easy question to answer. But let's take a closer look at a divided nation in a time of war.
It's the late 1930s. The United States has just come out of a severe economic collapse known as the Great Depression, just a few years prior. The Hindenburg disaster happened around this time, and jazz bands, blues, and swings had all come into style. Popular cultures were flourishing, and it seemed that things were getting better for the United States. In 1939, however, the people were about to find out that Germany had invaded Poland. War had been declared in Europe. The nation had been keeping an eye out at the rising political climate in Europe, especially Adolf Hitler's rise to power. Many people thought nothing of it. At least, that was the case until the invasion of Poland. This forced occupation by Germany sparked much debate between the American population, and two groups eventually came to play: the Isolationists and the Interventionists.
The Isolationists wanted nothing more than to remain neutral. They believed that the United States ought to build a fence instead of sending troops to fight in foreign soil. Much of this mindset stemmed from the fact that America still felt the effects of the First World War. The massive amounts of casualties and life lost had a huge impact on the public. In the early stages of the war, most of the population and public opinion in general was sided with the Isolationists. The people did not want to repeat such a disastrous catastrophe, and it showed. A poll from January of 1940 shows that 80% of the nation opposed entry into any sort of conflict, preferring to isolate themselves instead.
The Interventionists believed that they should intervene and put an end to the war themselves. Not only did they believe that it was their duty to help their British allies, but they also had other reasonings apart from purely ending the conflict. Some of the Interventionists feared the consequences of massive amounts of resources and territory being controlled by a totalitarian dictatorship. There were many influential political figures that opposed isolationism, most notably the 32nd President of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was very much opposed to the fighting in Europe, condemning the violence and saying he would gladly and eagerly send help to France.
These two groups constantly clashed with their different ideals and beliefs. Conflict and debate between them started in the early stages of the war, even a year prior to Germany invading Poland, with the formation of the Keep America Out of War Congress Committee, assembled in 1938. The most influential of these committees, however, was the America First Committee. Founded September 4th of 1940, it was dedicated to opposing the war and keeping America neutral in global affairs.
To the conclusion that we cannot win this war for England regardless of how much assistance we send. That is why the America First Committee has been formed.
The group gained much popularity, and it has even been speculated that it boasted an impressive member count of over 800,000 members. The group, led by R. Douglas Stewart Jr., had managed to convince many notable and popular icons at the time to support their cause and even join the organization's board. Charles Lindbergh, Potter Stewart, and Henry Ford all joined the board of the American First Committee and openly opposed joining the war.
On the other side, the Interventionists also had organized their own committees. Established in 1940, the Committee to Defend America by Aiding the Allies was an interventionist committee in support of joining the war and aiding Great Britain. This was by far the most popular of the interventionist committees. They held mass-scale rallies and performances. They bought out full pages of the newspaper. They handed out flyers and much more. They were the polar opposites of the America First Committee, also holding an impressive and almost equally as large of a member count of 750,000 members. Another very notable committee was the Fight for Freedom, founded in 1941, and it aggressively advocated for entry into the conflict in Europe.
If the American people today can be persuaded of what is happening in the world, if the true story can be taken to our people of the tragic events of today, there is no question whatsoever about what the American people will decide. We today, as we in the past, will decide to do our duty no matter how hard it is, how difficult it is.
Many celebrities joined this committee, such beloved animator Walt Disney, who eventually went on to produce multiple propaganda shorts for the US military.
The two of these groups continued to clash, congressmen on congressmen, friends on friends, neighbors on neighbors. But as time went on, the people stopped being isolationists and began leaning more into interventionism. As the war in Europe progressed, people started to realize that things were getting ugly. After the fall of France and bombing of London, a poll by Gallup shows that the percentage of people that wanted to help outgrew exponentially, and it just kept on growing. More and more attacks happened. People became more interventionists. They wanted war. They wanted to help. They wanted freedom for Europe. What they didn't expect, however, was that the war they wanted would be brought right to them. There was no debate anymore. No diplomacy. America was going to war.
But I know we'll meet again some sunny day.